At midnight, my girlfriend's father knocked on my door. She stood bruised and crying, but I didn't touch her. It was midnight when the knock came. 3 sharp shots that made my dog bark like the door itself had insulted him. I opened to find my girlfriend, Lena, swaying on the stoop with her father posted like a bulldozer beside her. Her lip was split, mascara spidering down her cheeks. She wouldn't look at me. He made sure I saw the bruises. "You hit my daughter," he said, voice calm in that awful way people get when they've already decided the ending. "Call the police, or I will." "Whoa, what?" "No." My mouth went dry. An hour earlier, Lena had left my apartment laughing, a jacket thrown over my shoulders because she always forgot hers. Her face had been clean, soft, untangled by fear. I had the image like a Polaroid still developing. "Lena, what happened? Baby, tell me." Her eyes darted past me, past the framed picture we took at the lake, past the little houseplant she always threatened to name. She swallowed. You threw me against the wall," she stammered, and the way she said it sounded like she was reading a line off a teleprompter underwater. I laughed then. The wrong sound at the worst moment. "Okay, please, just come inside. Let me see. Don't touch her." Her father moved a half step, and suddenly he was big enough to blot out my porch light. He smelled like aftershave and gasoline. "I told you last time I'd be watching." "There wasn't a last time," I said, because facts used to matter before midnight. The neighbor's porch light flicked on across the hall, then another above us, then a blind peeled up and the old woman with curlers leaned into the slit, the human equivalent of a car alarm. Lena's father turned to the growing audience with a sainted sigh and dialed, slow and theatrical. "Yes, hello, we need officers. Domestic violence. She's dangerous." "Stop," I said, reaching for Lena's hands. She flinched so hard she bumped the wind chime, and it sang one lonely note. My chest caved. "Lena, please, look at me." For a second she did, and I saw a message inside the fear, a blink I couldn't decode. Then the patrol car rolled up, blue lights turning the humidity into aquarium water. The officers separated us like we were magnets. "Ma'am, step outside." "Sir," hands visible. "What happened tonight?" Her father's story poured out like he'd rehearsed it with an acting coach. Lena nodded along, shaky and small. I kept saying, "That's not true," which is the world's most useless sentence because it never sounds like a fact, just a wish with a coat on. "Do you have any injuries?" one officer asked me. "Only the kind you can't photograph," I said, which did not help. They didn't ask to come in. They didn't need to when a man with gray hair and a righteous baritone says the word abuser and a girl with tremoring shoulders confirms. The cuffs were surprisingly warm, like someone had held them a second ago. "Can I at least get my phone?" I asked. "Evidence," the tall one said, bagging it. "You can talk at the station." Lena made a noise then, a low animal sound. "I'm sorry," she whispered, so soft I might have imagined it. "For what?" I asked, as they led me past her. "For everything," she said to her shoes. In the cruiser, I watched the porch light blur through water pooling in my eyes. On the curb, Lena's father wrapped an arm around her shoulders, careful not to touch the bruises. He looked up at the patrol car and smiled with his teeth. Booking was fluorescent and efficient. They took my shoelaces like I was a fable about poor choices, slid me into a cell that smelled like bleach and stories I never wanted to hear. A woman 2 bunks over asked if I had anyone to call. "My girlfriend," I said before my brain caught up to my mouth. The woman laughed until it turned into a cough. I didn't sleep. Every time my eyes closed, the porch replayed. Lena's nod. That one note of wind chime. The neighbor's curlers glowing like a crown. At 3 a.m., a rookie slid a paper cup of water through the bars. "You'll see a detective in the morning," he offered, like weather. "Any advice for me?" I asked, because I was drowning and jokes are the last bubbles. He looked 20 and earnest. "Tell the truth," he said. By sunrise I'd told it 3 times. She left fine. She wasn't hurt. I don't know what happened in between. "Any witnesses?" "Just the kind that think they are," I said, and signed my name under words that felt like I'd borrowed them from someone calm. When they let me call, Lena didn't pick up. Her father's number went straight to a voicemail where he promised his HVAC company treated customers like family. My boss texted a question mark and then another when I didn't answer. The world kept spinning, rude as ever. By nightfall, the cellmate with the cough handed me an orange she'd hidden somewhere I didn't want to consider. "You've got the look," she said. What look? I asked. The look of someone who didn't do the thing they said you did. She peeled the orange in one spiral, handed half to me. Still won't save you if the story's better the other way. On day 3, slumped on a bench that hummed with cold, something flickered across my mind like a moth. Mrs. Patel in 2B, bragging last week about her new Ring camera, how it caught the mailman singing. It sees everything, she'd laughed, shaking a ziplock of saffron like confetti. Everything, I thought, sitting up so fast my head smacked the concrete wall. Maybe it saw her. Officer, I called, voice hoarse. I need my lawyer. And I need to make one more call. By the time my lawyer, Evan, showed up, I looked like something scraped off the bottom of a boot. 3 days in holding does that to you. He was wearing one of those perfect gray suits that said, trust me, I bill by the minute. He sighed when he saw me, half pity, half irritation. Tell me you didn't actually do this, he said as soon as they shut the door behind him. I didn't, I croaked. Evan, I swear on everything, I didn't touch her. There's something else going on. He rubbed his temples. Okay, let's start from the top. They've got her statement, her father's statement, pictures of her bruises, and 2 neighbors who say they heard shouting. That's it. That's their whole case. And right now, that's enough to keep you here. Then let's find proof I didn't do it. I snapped, leaning forward. There's a camera. My neighbor, Mrs. Patel. She's got one of those Ring doorbell things. It faces the parking lot. I dropped Lena off that night. It should show she was fine when she left. Evan's eyes flickered with the first spark of hope I'd seen since he walked in. That's something. You sure it covers your car? I'm sure. She was bragging about how it sees everything. Get the footage. Please. He stood, adjusting his tie. I'll check it out. Sit tight. Don't talk to anyone. Yeah, I said. Because everyone's just dying to hang out with the accused woman beater. He gave me a long look, then left. The next 24 hours were a blur of bad coffee, metal benches, and the hum of fluorescent lights that made it impossible to tell if it was morning or night. When Evan finally came back, his face had changed. He was smiling, barely, but enough to turn the air electric. Found it, he said. Mrs. Patel keeps her footage backed up on her phone. She showed me. You dropped Lena off at 9:03 p.m. She's fine. No marks. She even kisses you on the cheek before she walks inside. My heart started pounding. And then, Evan's smile faded. 2 hours later, at 11:15, a black pickup pulls up. Her father gets out, pounding on her door. She lets him in. You can't see much after that, but 15 minutes later, he comes out half carrying her to the truck. She's crying, face swollen. I stared at him, the words sticking to my throat like wet paper. So he did it. Looks that way. But it's still your word against theirs unless we can get that footage authenticated and admitted. Don't celebrate yet. Authenticate it then. Subpoena it, whatever you have to do. Evan raised a hand. Already filed. But her father's a piece of work. He's been in court before, protective orders, custody issues, the works. Never convicted. Always someone else's fault. Something in me cracked. And she's been covering for him. I knew it. I saw the way she flinched when he raised his voice. God, I thought she just had a rough childhood. I didn't realize. Hey, Evan interrupted, softer now. You're out of here soon. Just keep calm. The next morning, they released me. The cuffs came off, but the mark they left stayed, thin, angry rings around my wrists. Outside the station, the sunlight looked fake, like someone had photoshopped it in. Mrs. Patel was waiting on the sidewalk, sorry flapping in the wind, her phone clutched like a weapon. I told the police, she said fiercely. I told them you are a good man. I even gave them tea when they came to get the video. Thank you, I said, almost choking on it. She patted my arm. Do not thank me. Thank my Ring camera. It is the real hero. Evan snorted. She's not wrong. We drove straight to his office, where he plugged in a flash drive and played the footage. My heart broke all over again watching Lena, smiling, waving, totally fine, walk away from my car. Then the second clip, her father dragging her out of the apartment building, one arm gripping her shoulder too tight, her face turned away. I don't understand, I muttered. Why would she lie? Why protect him? Evan paused the video. Victims cover for abusers all the time, especially when it's family. It's control, fear, guilt, the whole toxic cocktail. But she didn't have to accuse me, I said. She could have said nothing. He sighed. Maybe he made her. Maybe she thought it was the only way to keep him from snapping again. People do terrible things under pressure. I leaned back, trying to breathe. The room felt too small for all the questions crashing around in my head. Then Evan's phone buzzed. He frowned. You might want to hear this. He put the call on speaker. It was a detective. We confronted Lena's father with the footage. He claims it's fake. Says you doctored it. Of course he does, Evan muttered. What about Lena? She's gone, the detective said. Packed a bag, left her apartment. We've got an APB out, but it's like she vanished. The silence that followed was suffocating. Gone, I whispered. Gone where? We'll find her, Evan said, but even he didn't sound like he believed it. I stared at the frozen image on the screen, her father's hand locked around her arm, her body bent like she'd folded in on herself, and felt the first cold pulse of dread that this was just the beginning. Because if she was gone, it meant he wasn't done yet. And neither was I. The morning after Lena disappeared, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against the kitchen table. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was her. But it was Evan. Don't check the news, he said as soon as I picked up. Why not? Because it's bad. I checked anyway. The headline hit me like a slap. Local woman missing after domestic violence case. Police investigate boyfriend's involvement. My coffee went cold in my hands. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. They're still blaming me. They're working with old information, Evan said. And her father's been talking to reporters. He's telling everyone you threatened her after you got out. Said she was scared to testify. I stopped, because words didn't seem big enough. That's insane. I haven't even seen her since that night. I know. I believe you. But we need to get ahead of this. How? He sighed. By proving she's alive, and proving who's really dangerous here. By noon, the police searched her apartment. It looked like she'd left in a hurry. Clothes half folded, toiletries gone, her favorite mug still on the counter with lipstick on the rim. No signs of struggle, no note, nothing. The detective in charge, a tall woman with sharp eyes named Marquez, didn't look at me when she spoke. You said she was afraid of her father? Yes, I said. He's hit her before. She never said it, but I saw it. The way she froze when he called, the excuses about walking into doors, falling off steps. Come on. Marquez finally turned her gaze on me. And you didn't report it? I stared at her. Because she begged me not to. Because she said he'd kill her if I did. Convenient, she said dryly, scribbling something on her notepad. Evan jumped in. Detective, my client has an alibi for every hour since his release. You've seen the footage proving her father assaulted her. The Ring camera doesn't lie. Maybe, she said. But the footage isn't admissible yet. And until we find Lena, everyone's a suspect. That word, suspect, tasted like rust. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying it all. The knock, the bruises, her shaking voice. Somewhere between exhaustion and panic, I started scrolling through my old messages with her. And then I noticed something weird. A week before all this, she'd sent a photo of her dad's truck parked outside her apartment. The caption read, "He's here again." I told him not to come. I remembered she'd deleted it later, said it looked too dramatic. But my phone had auto-synced it to the cloud. I stared at the timestamp, 11:18 p.m. The exact same time he showed up that night on Mrs. Patel's footage. That wasn't coincidence. It was a pattern. I sent it to Evan immediately. Within an hour, he called back, excitement threading through his voice. That's solid. If we can show that this wasn't the first time he cornered her, it paints a whole different picture. Yeah, but we still don't know where she is, I said. What if he? Don't, he cut me off. We'll find her. 2 days later, we did. Or, well, sort of. Evan got a call from a motel clerk an hour outside town. A young woman checked in under Lena's middle name and maiden initial. Paid cash. Left before sunrise. But she forgot her bag. We drove there together. The clerk, a wiry guy with nicotine fingers, slid a small canvas tote across the counter. Cops already came by. Said they'll pick it up later. But if you're her boyfriend, he trailed off, looking me up and down. She seemed scared, man. Jumped every time a car passed. Inside the bag were the strangest things. Her sketchbook, a burner phone, and a photograph of her as a kid. Her father was standing behind her, his hand on her shoulder, his smile too wide to be real. Someone had drawn a thick black line through his face with a marker. Evan, I whispered, handing it to him. She knew. She's been planning to get away. The burner phone was dead, but Evan had a friend at a lab who could extract deleted data. We handed it off. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the old photo. For the first time, I realized her smile looked forced even as a child. The next day, Evan called again, his voice tight. You need to sit down. What did they find? The phone had messages, he said. Drafts she never sent. One of them was to you. I swallowed hard. Read it. He hesitated, then said, if anything happens to me, don't believe what he says. He's been doing this since I was 12. I can't cover for him anymore. I just need to disappear for a while. I love you. The silence after that stretched thin as wire. She knew it would come to this. I finally whispered. She knew he'd try to destroy me to protect himself. Yeah, Evan said quietly. And she tried to warn you. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. He's looking again. I froze. Evan, I said, voice trembling. I think she's still alive. And somewhere out there, her father knew it too. The text came at 2:13 a.m. He's looking again. No name. No location. Just that sentence, pulsing on my screen like a heartbeat. I stared at it until my eyes blurred, half convinced it had to be some kind of sick prank. But when I called Evan, he didn't hesitate. Forward it to me. Now. I think it's her, I said, pacing my living room. The burner phone messages, the timing, it fits. It might be, he said, but we can't assume that. Her father could have sent it to mess with you. That possibility hit harder than I wanted to admit. Evan continued. I'll trace the number through my contact at the lab. Don't respond. Don't call back. And for the love of God, don't go anywhere near her father. Yeah, that's not going to be a problem, I muttered. But inside, I knew it was a lie. Because every part of me burned to do something. The next morning, I drove to Lena's apartment complex anyway. The police tape was gone, but the air still carried the ghost of everything that had happened. The neighbors whispering on their balconies, the faint shadow of her father's truck on the pavement where he'd parked that night. I stood there staring at her door when a voice behind me said, You're not supposed to be here. It was Detective Marquez. She looked tired, like she'd been running on caffeine and suspicion for a week straight. I'm just trying to understand, I said. You'll understand from home. There's still an open investigation. I hesitated. Did you find anything new? She studied me for a moment, maybe deciding whether I was desperate or dangerous. Her father's been out of town the last 2 days, she said finally. Or so he claims. But no one's seen him since last night. Out of town where? Didn't say. Left his phone behind, too. My pulse spiked. You think he's looking for her? I think he's unpredictable, Marquez said. And if she's alive, she's running from both of you. That stung more than I expected. By noon, Evan called. We traced the text, he said, voice tight. It pinged off a cell tower near Oak Ridge, about 40 miles north. There's not much there except a few cabins and an old gas station. Oak Ridge. I repeated. She used to go there with her mom when she was a kid. There's a lake. Which means she might be hiding somewhere familiar, he said. But we can't just show up there. We have to notify the police. By the time they get a warrant, he could already. I stopped myself. He sighed. I knew you were going to say that. Just be smart. Don't go alone. But I was already grabbing my keys. The drive felt endless. The highway curved through forest and fog, each mile heavier than the last. My hands were shaking by the time I pulled into Oak Ridge, a half-forgotten town that smelled like pine and rain. The old gas station looked like it hadn't sold fuel in years, but a dim light burned inside. I walked in, pretending to browse, but the old man behind the counter looked up immediately. You lost. Just passing through, I said. You seen a young woman? Mid-20s, blonde hair, maybe bruised? His expression didn't change, but his eyes flicked toward the window for a split second, toward the woods beyond the road. I stepped outside, following that glance. There, half hidden by the trees, was a familiar car, a blue sedan. Lena's, the same one she'd been driving before everything fell apart. I called Evan. I found her car. She's here. Don't go in the woods, he warned. Wait for backup. But it was too late for waiting. I could see fresh footprints leading away from the car, 2 sets. One lighter, one heavier. Evan, I whispered. Someone's with her. The trees swallowed me whole as I followed the trail. Every sound, the crunch of branches, the whisper of wind, made my heart jolt. Then I heard it. Voices. You can't keep running, Lena, a man's voice shouted. Her father. And then hers. Hoarse, breaking. Please, Dad. Just stop. I crept closer, peering through the trees until I saw them near an abandoned cabin. Lena's face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears. Her father's hand was locked around her wrist. You ruined me, he hissed. You brought them into this. You think they'll believe you now? She tried to pull free. I don't care anymore. Before I could think, I stepped out of the shadows. Let her go. He spun around, eyes narrowing. You? Yeah, I said, voice shaking. Me? The guy you tried to destroy? Lena gasped. What are you doing here? Saving you, I said. Her father laughed, low and bitter. You think you're the hero? You don't know what she's capable of. Neither do you, I shot back. Then he reached into his jacket pocket. Lena screamed. I lunged forward, and everything exploded into chaos. There was a struggle, shouts, the sound of something metallic hitting the ground. My vision blurred. Then, somewhere behind me, sirens pierced the air. When I looked up, Detective Marquez was there, weapon drawn. Hands where I can see them. For a heartbeat, none of us moved. Then Lena's father dropped his hand, and the small silver gun he'd been holding clattered to the dirt. He was shaking. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Marquez cuffed him fast, reciting his rights as Lena collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I told you he'd find me, she whispered. I know, I said, holding her tight. But he's never going to hurt you again. What I didn't know, what none of us knew then, was that this was only the beginning of everything that would come next. Because as they drove her father away, Marquez turned to me with a look that chilled my blood. There's something you need to see, she said quietly. Something we found in his truck. And when I saw it an hour later, I realized that even now, the truth was bigger and darker than either of us had imagined. The back of his truck smelled like oil and old fear. Detective Marquez pulled back a tarp, and my stomach twisted. There were boxes, 3 of them, filled with photos, journals, and printed emails. Lena's face was everywhere. She handed me a folder. Inside were pages from Lena's therapy notes, police reports that had never been filed, and one envelope with my name on it. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photo of me and Lena at the lake, our arms around each other, and a message scrawled on the back in thick black marker. She belongs with me. Evan let out a low whistle. That's not just abuse. That's obsession. Marquez nodded grimly. He'd been following her for months, tracking her phone, reading her messages. We found a second burner in his glove compartment, one he used to text you. He's looking again came from him. My blood ran cold. He wanted me to find them. To make me the monster again. Maybe, she said, but he slipped up. There's enough here to bury him. Across the lot, Lena sat in an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket. She looked small, exhausted, but alive. When she saw me, she managed the faintest smile. I didn't think you'd come, she whispered when I walked over. I never stopped, I said. She nodded slowly. I couldn't keep lying. Not anymore. The paramedic closed the door gently behind her. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Still, as Marquez loaded the last box into her car, she gave me a look that lingered. There's more to this, she said quietly. Something about the way he kept those notes. Like he was protecting someone else too. I frowned. Someone else? She nodded. Yeah, and my gut says this isn't over. 2 days later, Marquez called again. Her tone was different, quieter, heavier. We went through the rest of the boxes, she said. There's something you should see. When I arrived at the precinct, she slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were more photos, not just of Lena, but of a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair, tired eyes. Some of the pictures looked decades old. Who is she? I asked. Marquez leaned back. Her name was Claire, Lena's mother. I froze. She disappeared when Lena was 14. Police assumed she ran off. But she flipped over one photo. Claire, smiling beside Lena, with the same bruises on her arm. It looks like she tried to leave him too. Evan frowned. You're saying Lena's father? Marquez nodded. We found Claire's ID and jewelry buried behind the cabin where we arrested him. It's being tested now, but she didn't finish the sentence. Lena walked in then, pale and shaking but determined. I want to see, she said. Marquez hesitated, then handed her the photo. Lena's face crumpled. He told me she abandoned us, she whispered. Said she couldn't handle me. God, all these years. I moved closer, but she held up a hand, breathing hard. I thought the violence started with me, she said softly. But it didn't. It's always been there. Marquez's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then looked up sharply. They just matched DNA from the cabin. It's her. It's Claire. Lena covered her face and sobbed, not out of shock, but relief, like she'd been carrying the truth in her chest her entire life. Evan put a hand on my shoulder. Looks like justice just got a little louder, he said. But I couldn't celebrate yet, because as Lena wept, I caught sight of another envelope in the evidence pile. Smaller, unmarked, sealed. Marquez slid it over. We found this in his truck too. Addressed to you. Inside was a single page, written in his jagged handwriting. You think this ends with me? It doesn't. Ask her what really happened that night. I looked at Lena, and she looked back, her tears gone, replaced by something else. Something like fear. Lena didn't speak for a long time. She just sat there, staring at the note like it was ticking. The room felt too small. Me, her, Evan, and Detective Marquez all waiting for someone to breathe first. Finally, she whispered, he's lying. He's trying to make you doubt me. Then tell me, I said gently. Tell me what he means, what really happened that night. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then down to her hands. I told you everything. Marquez folded her arms. Lena, if there's something you left out, now's the time. We already know he hurt you. We know about your mother. But if there's another piece of this story, Lena's voice cracked. You don't understand. He made me do things. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. What kind of things? Evan asked cautiously. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. He said if I didn't say what he told me to say that night, he'd show the police the video. What video? I asked. Her face twisted with shame. He recorded us. Me and you. In your car, outside the building. He said it would prove I was weak. That no one would believe a woman like that could be a victim. I felt sick. He blackmailed you into lying about me? She nodded, tears slipping down her face. He wanted me to humiliate you, to make you look dangerous. He said if I didn't, he'd send it to my job, to my friends. Marquez exhaled slowly. We didn't find any device or storage drives in his truck. That's because he hid it, Lena said. He told me he had a safe. At the cabin. Evan looked at Marquez. If that video exists, it could prove coercion. It could prove everything. I'll send a team back out, Marquez said, already grabbing her phone. But Lena, are you absolutely sure that's all? Lena hesitated, then looked at me. There's one more thing. What? She swallowed. The bruises that night. Some of them weren't from him. The words didn't register at first. My chest felt hollow. What are you talking about? Her voice cracked. When he came in, I tried to fight him off. I threw something missed. He hit me. I fell. I panicked. I hit the wall hard. That's when he told me to say you did it. I didn't mean for it to sound real. But by the time he was done, it didn't matter what I said. I was already part of it. I sat back, the world spinning. So you didn't lie to protect him, I said quietly. You lied because you thought you deserved it. She nodded weakly. Because I was scared. And ashamed. Marquez ended her call. We'll find that safe. And when we do, we'll have the full picture. Lena turned to me then, her eyes red but steady. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered. But I want to tell the truth now. All of it. I looked at her for a long time. The same woman who'd once laughed over burnt pancakes in my kitchen, and finally said, then we start with that. Because even though everything between us had been twisted by fear and lies, that moment, small and trembling, felt like the first real step toward something honest. And maybe, just maybe, toward peace. 2 days later, Marquez called at dawn. We found it, she said. The safe was buried under the cabin floorboards, hidden beneath a rusted toolbox. Inside, a flash drive, old photos, and a notebook in her father's handwriting. Pages of delusions. She's mine. They can't take her. But the flash drive was worse. When we played it, the footage matched what Lena described. Not violent, but invasive. Proof he'd been watching us, manipulating her with it. This is enough to end his defense, Evan said grimly. Marquez nodded. And enough to add another charge, illegal surveillance. For the first time, Lena didn't cry. She just whispered, he doesn't own me anymore. I reached for her hand. No, he never did. The courtroom smelled like dust and nerves. Lena testified first, voice trembling but clear. She told everything. About her father's control, her mother's death, and the night he forced her to frame me. The jury hung on every word. When they played the ring footage, then the files from the safe, the silence was heavy enough to choke on. Her father didn't look at her once. After 3 days, the verdict came, guilty on all counts. Lena collapsed into my arms outside the courthouse, sobbing. "It's finally over," she whispered. Evan exhaled, smiling for the first time in weeks. Justice served. But for me, it wasn't about winning. It was about breathing again. Months later, the world felt quiet again. Lena was in therapy, rebuilding. I was working, visiting her sometimes, still cautious. Both of us scarred but healing. One evening, she showed up at my door with a shy smile and a box of takeout. "No more lies," she said. "Just dinner." We ate on the floor, laughing for the first time in forever. There were still ghosts between us, but they were softer now. When she left that night, she turned at the door. "You saved me," she said. I shook my head. We saved each other. Outside, the wind chimes swayed, the same ones that had once marked the worst night of my life. And this time, the sound wasn't haunting. It was hopeful, because after everything, the lies, the loss, the fear, we'd finally reached something that felt like peace. And for the first time, midnight didn't feel like the end. It felt like the start.